and so lovely to see you here in person at Expo 2020 Dubai. Now tell us, we are days away from the Expo coming to an end, the 6-month-long journey. What's it been like for Australia?
Well, thank you very much for coming and thanks for being here. It's been a wonderful opportunity, an opportunity to showcase the best of our nation to the entire world. And of course, at the start of this, and when I spoke to you last time, there was a degree of scepticism and concerns about COVID. And I'm just so pleased that the world stuck by the UAE and all came here. You know, I think we're knocking on the door of about 23 million people attending this event. So I think it's certainly exceeded expectation.
Absolutely. I think it's, we've only been here for a few days now on the ground, on the tail end of it, but it is amazing. It's very hard to, to capture that sort of vibe and just the amount of people coming through on a video platform. But to be here in person is incredible.
You know, over the weekend, I think they had close to 500,000 people on this site.
Yeah.
And to think that, it feels like 2018 again, where the world is back to normal and you see some wonderful collaborations between nations, the opportunity to connect with, traditional partners of Australia, but also non-traditional partners, because, 192 nations are present here, which is just extraordinary.
Now, what are some of the highlights? What are some of the great business opportunities that have presented themselves as a result of the last 6 months?
I think the Expo did a very good job at breaking up the 6 months into thematic weeks, and that's all about getting the right people at the right time here in Dubai. So for example, in October it was Space Week, and then we've had around Gulf Food Time, where we typically have around 100 Australian companies. Everyone brings in their thought leaders around agriculture and food. So that really lends itself to opportunities by the fact that's by the weight of numbers of people being here. So Australia, we've done quite well throughout the experience. We've secured over $275 million worth of contracts, which is wonderful. A lot of that's assisting and supporting the UAE put on this event. We've signed over 28 MOUs or commercial agreements here in the Pavilion, which is great, and that's really across a whole range of sectors, whether that be from space to medical to agriculture. A big deal here with Coles and a local provider, Coles supermarket in Australia, for example. Lots of different deals across the 6 months, but also the involvement of the Australian business community. So we've had 214 Australian businesses be involved across the 6 months, which is just extraordinary. And I might add that the majority of those are in the last 3 months, particularly as our borders have started to open.
Yeah.
But we did a lot also virtually and hybrid as well.
And with that being said, has that opened further opportunities for businesses from Australia to come and set up here?
Absolutely, and everything we've had in our mind when developing the business program over the last 2 years is what is the legacy? How do we leverage this platform to leave a lasting impression and really give that kick up for Australian businesses here? And I think we've seen that. And just in enlightening businesses when they come over, that the opportunities exist here. They get encouraged by dealing with other Australian companies that are already in market. All of the products that we have inside the pavilion, so whether that be the food or whether that be our retail products, that's all about helping Australian small business who either want to enter the market or want to increase market share. So when they see those real life tangible examples, I think that breeds confidence, right?
One of the things I love about the Pavilion is, and again, you see it on some of the posts that have been great coming through the Pavilion, but you see the performers outside and the barbecue and the food truck, well not food trucks, but food containers, I should say. But it's so Australian when you come through here. And
that was the objective. You want to bring a slice of Australia to the Middle East, and how do we recreate that warm, welcoming, open Australia that we are? So we have this wonderful forecourt. We've had over 3,500 cultural performances and acts on our stage. We've sold something in the order of 70,000 Australian flat white coffees. And 30,000 Lamingtons, but lots of us, giving people a taste of Australian cuisine. Got some great Australian product down there, so great culture from Australian performers and artists that we've actually had to draw on from right around the world with our border challenges. We've had to bring people in from Europe, from the US, but also some from Australia. So recreating that and giving people that sense of who we are and our identity, I think has been really, really good for us. And almost 1.6 million people have experienced that, which is, really unprecedented.
Can you believe that this has actually been pulled off?
It is a surprise. I think, for all of us in my team, and there's about 210 staff here who run the Australian Pavilion, we've been cautiously optimistic, that having seen how the UAE has dealt with COVID, when you think of the lockdown by comparison to Australia, it was only measured in weeks. There's still about 3.5 million people who go through the Dubai airport each month. This place is operating in a very different risk profile and setting than how Australia managed the response. So that's really been conducive for business and visitors to come here. So, life has gone on here very successfully.
One of the big takeaways I've had just in the last few days speaking to so many pavilions, Australia is definitely warmly regarded, yourself included, but how everyone pitches in and helps out. So, and the pavilions themselves have talked about how if they ever needed some support or manpower or AV gear or anything like that, everyone just pitches in. So that sort of camaraderie must have really been, heartwarming.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that I often hear the same, that from Commissioner Generals from all the different nations, that this has been one of the most cohesive and collaborative expos that's ever been. I think maybe in part that's due to the pandemic and the rough times that we've all been through, but it hasn't really been the competitive environment that I thought it would be. It's been so collegiate, and the most successful events that Australia has done, and we've had over 160 business events in our VIP space up here, and we bring in a celebrity chef in each month to showcase great food. But when we bring those events together, when we have multiple nations involved, and typically we'll have 3 or 4 on panel discussions or different businesses involved, and then we'll typically try and get about 20 countries in the room, they're the ones who've been most successful. The countries that have set out just to project themselves in isolation haven't done as well, in my view. It's really that convening power of bringing people together, sharing ideas, sharing knowledge, sharing culture, and great things have been happening as a result.
And have you started planning for the next one in Japan already?
We have. The Australian government has taken the decision that we are participating in Osaka, which is good news. And now the planning starts now, and I think it's an incredibly important market for Australia. Lots of lessons learnt from here. From a foreign direct investment point of view, Japan's number 2. From a foreign trade and investment perspective, it's our 3rd largest trading partner. So there's lots of good things to look forward to in Japan, and I think they're expecting a similar number of countries to be involved and a similar number of visitors. The big difference, of course, will be around 80% of the visitor profile in Japan will be Japanese. So we need to think about our messaging there by comparison to here, where the multicultural nature of Dubai is that everyone's from everywhere.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, and I've asked this of a few pavilions of the Commissioner Generals, what are you most proud of? What are you, the whole journey, the pavilion, your team, what really comes to mind? Is it what you're most proud of, Justin?
I just think I'm really proud of the entire team that we have here and how passionate they have been in representing their country. I think we underestimated that, particularly with some of the expatriates that we have here. So we probably maybe got about 70% of our workforce from the local market here in the UAE. There's about 15,000 Aussies that call the UAE home. So we drew on that community, and we flew in about 30%. And a lot of them hadn't been home for some time. Seeing them talk about Australia and particular parts of Australia or their hometown, we put them all through a whole range of training so they understood all the important parts of what we're trying to achieve. But to see them in full flight talking about home is just wonderful, and makes you just so proud. And I also like the fact that they've probably learnt more about Australia in these whole of nation projects, and I've learnt certainly more about Australia, and it makes you even more proud. But no, it's been a wonderful journey.
And I think you mentioned this before, but the problems of the pandemic has actually forced everyone to work together, and it's really created this whole probably unexpected energy amongst the whole range of pavilions.
Absolutely, and I think people have adapted really well. We've had to do a whole range of hybrid events here, but we also had to draw on probably more on the expatriate community than we would have. We've drawn on some wonderful Australians who are already outside of Australia, but also that collaborative nature between nations, because we all went through this together. It highlighted how interdependent we are on each other. And there's been some wonderful discussions here about logistics and supply chains and interdependencies between nations and some of those shared challenges. And it just highlights how connected we all really are.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to be here in person and to discuss all of this with you.
And congratulations on an amazing job. Well done.
Thank you.
Great.